Hello, darling. This is River Roaring, celebrating the luminous life force in us all. Hello, darling. I'm River Roaring, and this episode is Pleasure Mapping, Solo and Partnered. What is pleasure mapping? What a delightful and fun day we're going to have today. Pleasure mapping is, simply put, the idea of mapping out your entire body, head to toe, of where you're getting the most pleasure or sensation today, or when you do the practice. It will change every time, and it's a really fun practice. And I want to share on this podcast episode how to do the practice and my guidance and pro tips for the practice. Pleasure mapping, whether you're solo or partnered. So this practice of slowly and deliciously exploring my body from the very tip top of my head, where the hairs start to come out at the top, all the way down, nice and slow, touching all the parts in different ways, all the way down to my tippy toes. Without this kind of knowledge of our bodies, so many things are less pleasurable or less sensual when we are when we want to be in a sensual experience. Senses, sensual. So if I don't incorporate my whole body when I'm having especially a sexual experience, one of the things that can happen is can quickly end up being a micro focus on the genital area, often just a really small area, often just a small area of the genitals is the real estate that gets to participate in the sexual experience and gets touched and stimulated. And most people I know aren't normally even using their entire genital area to have pleasure when they're self-pleasuring. So we get micro-focused. And then also with that micro-focus, a lot of times that's where goal-oriented comes from, which usually in sex means the goal is the orgasm. So when I enter this experience, my eye is on the prize. I want to get an orgasm, and everything I do is to get the orgasm, or to get the orgasm, quote unquote, for my partner. And that's goal-oriented, sensual interaction with self or the other. And then another thing that can happen is performance or scripted sexual experience, because we're just dealing with a small part of the body often, and then if there's a goal to orgasm, it's just a very scripted and simple, repetitive usually experience. And so why do that when we can have this awesome full-bodied experience? And so pleasure mapping will help you find all the places in your body that feel the best to be touched. So I, using pleasure mapping, have felt so many new sensations. I really, really, really love my skull I'm doing it right now, like kind of rubbed underneath the hair. Feels so good. And then also just, oh my gosh, I think I could get stuck here all day long, just kind of rubbing my scalp with my fingertips, somewhat firmly, medium firmness. Feels so good. It feels so good to just mess the hair up, and lots of things feel good with pulling on the hair, different kind of amounts of pulling. When I pull hair, I always grab a large amount of hair. I'm not pulling on like one strand or a small, tiny strand. I'm grabbing a lot and pulling. Feels so good to stretch the scalp out. And all the way down, I had tons of surprises the first time I did this. And one of the other humongous surprises was foot massaging my own feet in a bunch of different ways. I'm like, oh my goodness, I did not know how wonderful this feels until I set aside the time and the space and I did pleasure mapping. So here are some tips for pleasure mapping your own body or your partner's. So first of all, for all solo or partnered, I really recommend setting a space, a delicious space. I call it ritual space. So externally in your ritual space, which can be a very simple thing. You could be in your car, technically, you could be camping, you could be in your bedroom, another person's bedroom, you don't have to be in any fancy place. And if you want to, consider things like the sound and put some nice sound on that you like the most if that helps you and soothes you and nourishes you. So you're creating an external space that is nourishing. You might want to use scent, like incense. You might want to use the favorite colors you have or textures all around you, or any favorite items like altar items or other totems or things that mean a lot to you, or stones that help you ground, or things like this in the external part. And then internally, we set ritual space as well. And one of the most fundamental, simple, yet also rare states of internal being is what I call safety. And Dr. Betty Martin defines safety inside as a relaxed nervous system. And I love that definition. So my ritual space inside myself, I want to do the things that create safety for me so that I can open up and feel things. And for me, that is definitely related to having a relaxed nervous system. So you might do different things like take a hot bath or a hot shower or cold shower, or do some yoga first, whatever you do to get internally, maybe some meditation first. So first step is setting the space. And then the next step is, I'm going to talk about the solo. So I recommend having solo pleasure mapping sessions with yourself no matter what. So even if you're going to be pleasure mapping with a partner later, I highly recommend pleasure mapping with yourself first, because it's really fun for you to know what it's like you're a canvas and it's the first painting here on the canvas. Every time you set time aside and space aside to pleasure map, you're probably going to find really different parts of your body that respond each time. At the same time, you may also find that there are certain things, that parts of your body that respond to certain kinds of touch really a lot every time, and so those are fun places to find. So knowing your own body, when you pleasure map your own body, you know yourself better. You do it several times and you start to see patterns in your own body and its responses and its sensual responses. And then of course, if you're hanging out with partners who touch, that gives you a lot more information about what to ask for from your partner. So if you're one of those folks who, when a partner turns to you in a sexual experience and says, "Oh, what would you like now?" and you freeze up, you don't know, pleasure mapping is definitely for you. So you can find your own body's most delicious areas. So for your solo pleasure mapping, just set your space, and then I recommend laying down or sitting down in a really comfortable position, and you might even start just waking your hands, which is a practice that we kind of start with in the weekend workshop. Waking the hands is where I'm touching an inanimate object. I'm laid back in my ritual space. I've found the best I can safety in my relaxed nervous system, and I've got the time and space set aside, and I'm now just feeling an inanimate object. Why? Because that really helps me see how much my hands are sensing. If my hands aren't sensing much with an inanimate object like a pillow or a stuffed animal or anything, a phone, a pen, a journal, a blanket. If I am not able to wake up the sensations inside my hands and also really start to light my body. So in other words, if my body, and especially my hands, don't respond when I'm touching an object that's not alive, then when I have an object that is alive, it's going to be even harder to reach those capacities for sensation in the body. So we have a root of sensation that can close more or open more, and so I can touch an object and have a wild response inside my body to the sensations. My whole body can light up when my hand touches an object if my channels are open. And I myself, same person, can be really closed down and shut down, and I can touch that same object the same way and have no response in my body because my channels are shut down at that point. So even within one person, they can be really open in one moment, really closed in another moment. And within one person, our channels for sensing sensation in my hands and body are only as open as I have cultivated them to be. So many of us have pretty closed pathways because of the society we live in, has so many opportunities for us to clamp down on how we feel things. So it's a great starting practice to wake your hands with an inanimate object and start to wake up your body before you complicate it with a living object. And when you're ready to complicate things with your living object, then set the object over to the side and start at the top and go all the way to the bottom of the body, literally at the very, very top. Just first start by just touching the tip top of your head point right there and hold it and just see how does it feel to just touch the top of my head in the point. And then maybe I want to just lay my hands down flat on my scalp so that all of my palms and fingers are relaxed out and touching my head. And notice if I like them, how does it feel to just have my hands resting on my head at the top? And how does it feel if I put more pressure on or if I start squeezing a little? How does that feel? Just notice. And then from there, just move your hands however you want to. They can be still. You can start with holding each new part still. And just noticing what kind of holding feels good there. Does it feel good to be really, really light to where you can almost not even feel your hands? Maybe they're even outside of your body and you can feel the energy or not. All the way down to lightly touching my body, but not moving, just touching lightly, or all the way to pressing a little bit. How does that feel? Is there sensation in your body? Is there pleasure? Does it feel pleasant? If it doesn't, keep moving around to another kind of touch and use several different kinds of touch on each part. I'm tapping the top of my head right now. I'm using my fingertips to kind of massage the top of my head scalp right now. I'm grabbing the hair in large areas and pulling gently right now. So I'm just at the top of my head, and I might have used 5 to 10 different ways of touching already, and there are many, many more. So once you've mapped out the top of the head, the very top of the head, then let yourself go down a little lower and incorporate half the head. And now try all kinds of different touching, feeling half of the head. And that is including the face, forehead, the eyes, to the nose. How does it feel to touch your face? How does it feel to touch it really lightly? How does it feel to hold your hands away and not even touch it yet, but close? Can you feel the energy there from your hands? And how does it feel to let the hands come down toward the face, just touching the hairs of the face? I love that one. And then how does it feel to let them gently rest on the face still? I'm doing it with more of the whole face, not quite the whole face, to the top. Just let them rest gently still. How does it feel to just slightly, they're resting still on my face now and just slightly moving them up and down, just really, really slightly. How does that feel? That's nice. That's really nice. So there are probably 20, 30, 40, 50 ways you could touch every part of your body. Try at least 3 kinds, maybe more, on each part, and trickle down your body and touch. Touch maybe a little more of it, a little less of it, but don't let anything be neglected. Any part. There's light, tickling feeling almost. Some people love tickling. Some people do not like tickling. So when I'm with a partner and they're like, that tickles, I'm like, I need to know if you really love that or really hate it. That is not enough information for me. So pleasure map your own body head to toe. You might want to use some oils or something to help your hands be smooth on your skin. Either way is fine. And map it all out. Maybe you leave your whole genital area for last. That's a great idea to do. Just leave that whole area for last. And then even when you get to the genital area, whichever kind of body you have, an innie or an outie, or both, then explore every single millimeter of this area with lots of different kinds of touch. There are so many parts of the genital complex that a lot of people will just never really discover in their lifetime and just ignore, just ignore. And those parts want to be included too. They're awesome also. So taking your time head to toe with your own pleasure in your own body. Maybe there's some tickling, maybe there's some laughing, maybe there's some crying. We hold trauma in our bodies. We hold old experience, and we hold emotional challenges we could not completely cope with earlier in our life are actually stored in the body. So if you're really pleasure mapping your whole body head to toe in great detail and with lots of different kinds of touch, right now I'm like squeezing my thighs. Squeezy. It feels so good. If we're not exploring all these different ways, if you are exploring all these different ways, it's very likely you're going to find something that is holding some trauma from your past, and there may be some tears there. And see if you can just gently stop and be with any memories that come through, any emotions that come through. They don't have to be judged good or bad. We don't have to try to jump back into the memory of it. And at the same time, we don't have to try to get rid of them either. Can just be with. It's very important that for us to be able to just simply be with, witness the memories, the feelings. If it's too intense, too many memories that you don't want to be in, and you hit your limit, then definitely stop the practice. So whenever you are hitting your limit and your body is just telling you, I just can't do this anymore. I don't want to do this anymore. There's contracting happening in my body now. Stop the practice. That's what we call a limit. Your body is telling you, I don't want to do this anymore. So definitely honor that. Now, are you ready to talk about partnered pleasure mapping? With partnered pleasure mapping, of course, also set the space, however you and your partner like to. Of course, this can be done with groups. I would suggest doing the solo first and really exploring your own body a lot. And then, ideally, one partner, and before you add in even more. At the same time, I'm sure you're going to interpret and do this exactly as you want to. So this is kind of like those, are they called Tonka toys or Tinker toys, where you or Legos? Put your Legos together however you want to put them together. But for partnered, set the space externally. Each partner sets this own space internally to be in a relaxed nervous system, so therefore in safety, so therefore there's room to explore. And then let's have clear verbal agreements about the pleasure mapping. So have very clear agreements. I suggest that, number one, it's for the person who's being mapped. So if your body is being mapped, it's for you. So I'm going to say, look, 'cause you're the one who's being touched. This practice of pleasure mapping is for you to find places on your own body that are awesome. The other person who's touching you is in service to you. Number two, throughout the pleasure mapping practice for partners, if you're being touched and it's for you, clearly state your desires to your partner all the way through. Will you just place your hands on the top of my head still? Will you increase the pressure as you slightly push in on your hands there and hold that? Will you release the pressure now and curl your fingertips up so that you're kind of, it's like a scrubbing a little bit, a scrunching of your fingers on my head, and do that for a while. Ooh, thank you. Will you now stroke with your fingertips, now massage on my scalp? Oh, nice. Will you slow down on that? Oh, yeah. Oh, will you apply a little more pressure there? Oh, will you apply a little less pressure? So if you are being explored and mapped, this practice is agreement number one, I recommend. This practice is for you. Agreement number two, I recommend. Name your desires very clearly throughout the practice. Especially, I love to use the sentence stem, will you? A lot of people find it hard to do, but they use words like maybe a little harder, maybe a little slower. Would it be possible to slow down? And these are not very clear. So I'm saying clearly state your desires all the way through. And finally, for both of you, you always have a limit. And so if your body is saying, I am no longer open-hearted here, I'm no longer wanting to do this practice, your body is giving you that signal, then agreement number three is each one of you have a limit, and when your body is saying you don't want to do this anymore, you're going to tell the other person verbally, I'm at my limit now. So I guess that's it for today, or for now. All right. And then finally, the fourth agreement I recommend is to go very, very slowly. Start and then slow down, and then slow down again by half, and then slow down again by half, and let it be really drawn out and delicious. Let's begin at the top of the head and move slowly down as directed. The person who's touching is moving as directed only. You're doing what they ask for, one small body part at a time. It's absolutely fabulous. And remember, for both partners, this doesn't mean the map is set forever. And so if that worked, if this button worked this time, that button's going to work every time. We're not doing that. It's a momentary pleasure map, and it will change all the time. So we always get to re-explore and find new things that didn't feel so awesome earlier. Now it feels super, super awesome, and vice versa. And so for a bonus, with your pleasure mapping, solo or partnered, add in a mood or mindset. And I really love the following ones. I'm going to say them in a kind of like an order. So one mood is reverence. That basically the toucher especially, but both, stay in a reverent mood throughout the pleasure mapping practice. It's an option, and it's just one option. Another option that I didn't even put on this list is playful. It could just be playful. But it's interesting to name the mood when you're solo or partnered. Let's make this one playful. And the person who it's for, you're getting mapped, you get to decide the mood, of course. So maybe you want to be playful. Maybe you want it to be reverent. If it's playful, I want to caution you to keep it slow, because when we play, sometimes it can get faster, and that's not really the practice anymore. It can turn into kind of an activated session. So keep it slow, keep it relaxed. Reverent is an option for a mood. I want to be very reverent with this. I want you to touch me with reverence. Another type of a mood or way to do it, state of being, is blessings. As you touch every part of my body, I ask that you bless it. Similarly, a healing intention. Every time you go through any part of my body, I'm going to ask that you hold the intention of healing. And I'll do the same, and I will hold my intention of every time you touch a part, that part is healed. And another mood or mindset to try, or state of being, would be devotion. When you touch my body, I would like you to be in a state of devotion throughout this practice. And I as well will stay in a mood of devotion to myself and you. And one that for me really turns the volume up is the mood, mindset, or state of being of worship. As I explore you, I will be worshiping. And so once you've done pleasure practice that way, that's for the mapped individual, I really recommend that the first time, maybe second and third time, the practice is for the person who's being mapped. And after that map is done and the partners know one another better, is really when it might be able to be switched over to, now let's do a pleasure mapping, but I want to touch you for me, top to bottom, slowly, and I will be in a state of worship. I want to worship you head to toe, basically. So this practice has so many different variations and deliciousness. Once the practice is complete, I highly recommend to ground the experience in the material world by journaling about it and writing about it, or maybe drawing a picture. It might be really interesting to draw out a picture of the outline of a body and then put colors and shapes everywhere around the body with colors that represent to you the experience you just had, both people. Or maybe you dance it out, or maybe you sing it out. But I do highly invite you to ground your experience afterward in the material world. And also maybe you end with a grounding cuddle or holding if you're with a partner. If you're with yourself also, or with a partner, maybe you also end in some time of silence and meditation. So these are all things that can be weaved in. And I invite you to make this practice your own and to routinely do it as much as you want to, and let it be just as delicious as it's set up to be. It's designed to be fabulous because it's your favorite and best. So there are many positive outcomes that can come from pleasure mapping, from knowing yourself better, knowing your partner better, to having unscripted, wild and primal sexual experience, because your whole bodies can get involved. It immediately takes the playing field way up high into a higher level. It cranks a sensual experience up quite a few notches to be able to then incorporate the entire body head to toe with confidence and clarity and really clear communication. So there's so much joy and fun that can come from pleasure mapping. I invite you to try it all different kinds of ways and find your favorite and make it your own. And I invite you also to let me know how it's going with you, because I do want to hear from you. So if you find this podcast in a social media area, leave a comment. I'll come by and find your comment and write back. Or shoot me an email by visiting riverroaring.com, my website, riverroaring.com, and just click on Let's Get in Touch and River, Let's Talk, and you'll have a chance to share any kind of reflection, question, or insight you had from your pleasure mapping practice. I'm right here and I'd love to hear from you. because I'm on earth for the purpose of supporting those who are called to bring maximum love and light into their lives, liberating their self-expression in every realm where all is sacred, connecting with you to create a cosmic web of love and light throughout the realms. Every person listening or hearing this podcast in any timeline is all connected to a web of light right here, because together we can step into a more harmonious vibration. Together we can fly higher, shifting human consciousness for the highest good of all beings in all realms, all timelines. May the love, my darling, be with you, and may the love be with us all.